these dynamics, 200 years, 300 years in the lifespan of a dynamic like race and slavery, and this is really not as much, I think, as we think it is. And the idea that there are discrete historical eras is really just a way for us to measure time. It is not the way it works. Time is actually not a day is not 24 hours long. It is, we've imposed that.
We've segmented it.
We've imposed these sort of like structures as a way of telling time, but that's not the way that time works. Time just rolls on, and history is the same way. And we are in an era that is, it comes in waves. There's an ebb, and then there's like a sort of and I said this the other day, the tide goes in, the tide goes out. And we are in an era where we are seeing white pushback, for lack of a better term. The power structure, one of the fundamental power structures in this country, tied in, yes, with capitalism and money, but is pushing back. The pendulum is swinging a little bit more, and it doesn't moves forward, but it does swing back and forth within the context of that. And that's what's going on here. And we have 3 survivors in their hundreds who were alive in 1921 when the Tulsa Race Riot, or you can call it the Black Wall Street Massacre, where a district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I think it was called Greenwood.
I'm not sure.
Greenwood district was a wealthy upper middle class a black district, and they were just basically, planes,
tens of thousands displaced, but hundreds
Greenwood.
killed. Yeah, in the Tulsa White Supremacy Massacre.
And this clip came from like a day before yesterday, when a judge.
I think it was Saturday. So this happened Friday, and then on Saturday, the judge dismissed
the reparations suit by these 3 who, there was never any type of reparation for what took place in those days. Here it is.
Tulsa Race Massacre not fall under your definition of CRT?
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't address that part. I would never tell a kid that because of your race, because of your color of your skin, or your gender, or anything like that, you are less of a person or are inherently racist. That doesn't mean you don't judge the actions of individuals. Oh, you can absolutely. Historically, you should. This was right. This was wrong. They did this for this reason. But to say it was inherent in that because of their skin is where I say that is critical race theory. You're saying that a race defines a person. I reject that. So I would say you be judgmental of the issue, of the action, of the content, of the character of the individual, absolutely. But let's not tie it to the skin color and say that the skin color determined it.
One more follow-up. How does the Tulsa Race Massacre not fall under your definition of CRT?
I answered it. That's my answer. And again, I feel like...
The Tulsa Race Massacre was a race massacre. How does it not fall under CRT?
I've answered your question. I do appreciate, very respectful.
The 100 years of silence was about race. How does that not fall? How does that not qualify for CRT?
I appreciate your question. I'm going to give some other people some.
Yeah. Okay. This is, they don't have the ability to go into the second and third questions of this. Mm-hmm. They don't have the ability. The idea that, and I don't know what it is, like even he's straw manning here as to what's happening to some kid who learns about the Tulsa Race Massacre as a race massacre. You can't say these individuals, to say that these individuals who perpetrated this just did so because they're bad people and there was no relationship to the power structure that existed in this country. There was no relationship to the resurgence of white supremacy in the KKK. To say that there was no response by the federal government or, neighboring towns because of because of the race of the victims and because of the race of the perpetrators. To deny all that is to simply say we are going to revise the reality of history.
It's lost cause. And
it's total lost cause.
Yeah.
And we're going to ignore this. And this is just as at that time in the late teens, early 20s, we saw all these Confederate statues going up because of the resurgence of the racism, that the re-empowerment, I should say, of the racism that led to the Tulsa, Oklahoma race riots. We're seeing that same sort of dynamic today.
That's a helpful lens to look at anti-CRT legislation as essentially the educational upholding of the Confederacy, and also akin to putting up those kinds of statues of Confederate generals. Like, just see it in that lens, and it's much easier to understand. And just people should look up the images of these over 100-year-old survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And I mean, let's just put this up really briefly because it just sticks out to me. And the judge who just essentially unilaterally decided that they did not have standing because the reasoning was that you don't get to have payments provided for you for historical events that happened to you just so long ago. When I've listened to the testimony 2 years ago in front of Congress about the Tulsa Race Massacre by one of the people who brought the suit, I believe, Viola Fletcher. And some of the things she said, and some of the things she writes about, seeing at age 7 or 8 a man's head explode like a watermelon, she described it. Hundreds of black bodies in the streets. Like, I guess if it was about the individual actions, it's just a coincidence that the hundreds dead were black and that massacred. The mob was white.
You can only be massacred as an individual.
I mean, wow, what a massive coincidence. Honestly, it's like lightning being struck 300 times in the same spot, that all of the perpetrators, essentially, a majority of them were white, and that the victims were black, and that they targeted the black neighborhood. What a coincidence.
And to be fair, there were white people dead because some black people fought back. But this was a black neighborhood. It was perpetrated by white people. And it literally, they flew planes with bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the 100-year-old victims, a 38-year-old, what's that guy's name? Ryan Walters, born in 1985, is going to be able to opine on this. And the panic...
I mean, you can opine on it if you do the work of reading about it and understanding it. But the idea that somehow this is divorced from the question of race, and that by, raising the fact that these individuals were guided by race, you have to believe that there is no concepts that exist. Like, if you don't believe that it is a legitimate characterization that white supremacy led to a race riot like this, then you can't conceive of any concept. There can't be things like freedom, or the idea that we fight for democracy, or the idea that we celebrate liberty. Like, that means that no ideology can exist at all. No ideas that motivate people's actions. Nothing. And of course he doesn't believe that. I'm sure we can find this guy talking about Judeo-Christian values somewhere.
Right.
Or liberty, or freedom. Or, there is no, if you cannot cite white supremacy as as something that motivated and motivates people at different times, then you can't cite anything.
The judge also dismissed the suit with prejudice, meaning it can't be refiled in state court. This was these people's last opportunity to kind of get some reparations for their families as they near the end of their lives.
Right. And it wasn't obviously just about.
And the city of
any-
Tulsa was the defendant, and that's
Right.
who she sided with. So this is the structural racism. The city of Tulsa is still actively trying to deny people this justice.
With regards to schools, like the panic that the right has about political activists being inserted into the school system, we should be as panicked about. That's an appropriate level of panic, but just for us and these people. Like this guy, 38 years old, he was like a superintendent or something like that.
Yeah.
But like straight out of college, just installed, and now basically as a white supremacist.
Yep.
He was polite about it. I appreciate the second question, but I'm not going to answer. We got a lot of other things to talk about. And, you know, you'll see the same thing. I mean, Clarence Thomas of the same ideology. Like when he gets his ideological ass handed to him by KBJ in this, the same level of petulance. Now, when you have the ability to tell someone to shut up, like this guy did in that video, they're not quite as babyish about it.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that with Mark Joseph Stern in just a moment.